What is going on? Welcome to Truth Wizard, or welcome back to Truth Wizard. Either way, of course, it is always good to have you. It is good to be here. Thank you for joining me today. Today's video, we are going to take an exclusive look into the Orphan Train narrative. Now, I featured a video clip in yesterday's video about this, and it was very intriguing. And the last time I had looked into this was weeks ago. It was one of the first videos I think I'd really done. It was, I say that, one of the first, like, I think 5 or 6. I don't remember where it fell in line. Either way, I wanted to do a video kind of exclusively on Orphan Trains. So here we are. So I found some clips that I thought were pretty intriguing. Some of these I've seen, most of these I have not. So we're going to kind of watch a little bit of this together and learn and explore together. If you already have seen a lot of information on this, I hope you still join me because I think it's very intriguing. And if you have something that you can add to this for me, drop me a comment, man. Drop me a link. Let me know. Also, do me a massive favor. If you have not already, hit the like button, please, and hit the subscribe button, man, especially if you have been here 3, 4, 5 times or more and you have not subscribed. Please hit the subscribe button for me. I'm trying to grow the channel. I'm legit trying to get a community going. I want some of y'all's input. I want some of your knowledge. If you have something to contribute, let me know, drop me a comment, hit me up, send me an email, whatever, man. I'll look into it. We can discuss things together, toss around ideas, conspiracies, UFOs, ghosts, spirituality, life in general, man. Let's take a look. Let's take a dive into it, and let's discuss it together. Now, with that being said, I'm going to zip it up, and we are going to go ahead and get into it.
Even deeper than the fact that they were literally shipping and delivering babies legally in 1913. And they would even put stamps on the children's clothing? Even crazier than that, supposedly, the world's first narrative film, the first real movie ever, is called La Fée aux Choux, or The Cabbage Patch Fairy, from 1896.
What the actual hell just happened? Did she really portray pulling kids out of a head of cabbage? Dude, come on, man. We're starting off strong with this one, man. Holy shit. So, the first film shows a Cabbage Patch fairy pulling a live human infant out of a head of cabbage. Look, y'all, if you think that things today are crazy and out of control, look at what we just watched. They even had little statue figurines. Looks heavy. Looks like someone put a lot of work into that. It's a kid. That's a kid. That's a baby in a head of cabbage. Dude, what? So, okay. So I saw a video of this I put in one of my videos weeks ago. Okay. And it was strange. It was very strange. I didn't know it was this deep. I didn't know it was like this. Okay. This is absolutely insane. Here's my question. Is this just like the same thing we experienced today? Was this just fine marketing, writing a trend, right? Feeding the people a narrative, something, or was there more to it? What is your take on that? I think there's more to it. And if you are one of the folks that believe of things in plain sight, then you surely should believe there was more to it. This is wild. Wow. That is a suspiciously large head of cabbage. Uh Look, man, allegedly 1890 is what I'm seeing here, top left. This photo is dated. If that is in fact true, that is a massive head of cabbage. And I would have to say, you could probably fit a human baby inside that thing. Okay. Wow. This is so nuts. Man, oh man. All right, so that's a good start to this little dive into the Orphan Trains and the Cabbage Patch Kids here. I had no idea it was like that. I didn't know there were little figurines, little statues made that, who buys that and decorates their home with shit like that? That's fucking weird, man. That's weird. That's a weird thing to do. It's a weird thing to make. It's a weird narrative to have. Why would you claim that, babies come out of the ground out of a head of cabbage? That is the most absurd bunch of shit I've ever heard in my life. And do you think that's another just wacky, ridiculous narrative that they assigned to cover the fact that they were growing these babies, cloning them, perhaps? I tend to think that because they do say some wild shit as a narrative and people believe it. So I don't know, man. That's a strong start. So far, I'm liking it.
There were two ways that people got children from the orphan trains. The Foundling Hospital would put notices in newspapers around the Midwest, and people would write in and say, I'd like a blonde, curly-haired, blue-eyed, 7-year-old boy with a sweet disposition. And so they would look around and find that child and put him on a train, and then that person would be waiting.
They would look around, find that child, or you would submit what kind of child you wanted, and they would genetically modify that child for you and grow it and send it on its way. And I don't mean to be heartless when I say it, but I mean he or she's way. That's bizarre. Now, let me just say this. That's purely speculation. That is purely my assumption. However, we have seen some emails that have come out very recently that allegedly states that someone else was into genetically modified babies, designer babies, it was called. What if that's not original technology, original ideas? What if they've been doing this for a while? What do you think about that?
On the other end, the Children's Aid Society had the children line up by height at a train platform or at a city hall or a Grange hall. Then farmers or whoever came would often, not unlike a slave auction, have them run in place, check their teeth, check their muscles, have them do even sit-ups or push-ups to make sure they were strong because they wanted workers. The farmers would...
To make sure there were no manufacturer defects? I don't know, probably not, right? Maybe you ordered a child, they grew it for you, and then once said child ships to your local train platform, you're going to have them do some physical activity. Make sure that, they assembled it properly. I keep saying it, not because I'm trying to be an asshole. You get what I'm saying. For real though, man. What if? I'm just asking, what if?
Take them off the stage and then fill out certificates taking ownership of the child. Contracts were signed between the people who took the train riders in and the organization, the Children's Aid Society or the Foundling Hospital, and it says, shall be indentured until the age of 21. It was actually a form of slavery. Many of them had no choice but do what they were told to do.
As the train drew nearer to its destination, the children's clothes were changed, their faces washed. They were prepared for the defining moment of the trip, the distribution. In local newspapers, notices had run in advance encouraging people to come see the homeless children on the stage of a meeting hall. As the children waited to be displayed, they were urged to make a good impression on the audience.
November 7th, 1883. I was a witness of the distribution of 40 children in Minnesota. The children arrived at about 3:30 p.m. and were taken directly from the train to the courthouse. Mr. Matthews set the children one by one before the crowd and gave a brief account of each. Applicants for the children were then admitted in order behind the railing and rapidly made their selection. If the child gave the assent, the bargain was concluded on the spot. It was a pathetic sight to see those children, tired young people, weary, travel-stained, confused by the excitement, peering into those strange faces. Hastings' heart.
The distributions continued for 75 years, until 1929.
It was a huge stage, and we were all set up there in 2 rows of semicircle. And the people were already down in the audience. They had been notified ahead the day before that we would be there.
The big day came, and we arrived on a Sunday in Kirksville, Missouri, at the Presbyterian Church. We marched down the aisle, 13 of us, and they would walk past us, and you were viewed. And that's a strange feeling. You'd never been looked at in that way before. You'd never seen people looking all around you.
That was an ordeal that no child should go through. They pulled us and pushed us and shoved us. And this old man, I had never seen anything like anybody chewing tobacco. I knew nothing about it. This old man came up and his mouth was all stained brown. And I thought, well, he'd been eating chocolate candy or something. Then he said, open your mouth. I looked at him. And he said, I want to see about your teeth. I opened my mouth. He stuck his finger in my mouth and rubbed over my teeth. And his old dirty hands just, I wanted to bite, but I didn't.
The children whom no one selected were escorted back to the train and taken to the next stop on the line.
By that time, there was some 20, maybe 25 children left on the train, along with my brothers and I. And we eventually wound up in a little town down in deep northeast Texas called Clarksville, Texas. And we were lined up again there, examined and everything. And a couple came by, picked up Gerald, who was only 2.5 years old. I don't suppose the child had ever been shown any love or anything, because when the lady bent over to talk to him and everything, he just almost jumped in her arms, and you could see him grab her around the neck. And so they decided to take Gerald. There again, I felt terrible because I knew I was losing a brother right there. And they took Gerald over to the table, did the paperwork, and he was just happy as he could be until they started out the door, and he suddenly realized that he was losing his brothers, and he turned around and screamed right loud for his brothers. And, of course, that broke my heart again.
Children drifted from farm to farm. Some even made their way back to New York. There were stories of children landing in reform school in Michigan. From Indiana, rumors of children on the dole. A Southerner named J.H. Mills claimed that men needing labor, their slaves being set free, take these boys and treat them as slaves. The record books are filled with names and dates, details of departures and arrivals, but say little about the quality of the children's treatment. The extent of abuse is unknown. With reports of children drifting through the countryside, Brace consented in 1883 to an independent investigation. It found the local committees were ineffective at screening foster parents. Supervision was lax. Many older boys had run away. Many rural people viewed the orphan train children with suspicion, as incorrigible offspring of drunkards and prostitutes. The children spoke with the accents of Ireland, Germany, and Italy. Unlike most Midwesterners, many were Catholic. One official said what was good for New York was very bad for the West.
I have known several of these city Arabs being provided with homes and never heard of but one that proved to be honest. I believe it is the blood and not the education that tells.
Fucking crazy, man. Let me ask you this. So a moment ago, he said that a lot of these kids spoke of an accent, Irish, Italian, I would imagine German, I would imagine French. These kids would not have spoken English, right? So if you were to take that child and put he or she in a factory or at your house to work and do things, how would you communicate with that child? Were there enough adult immigrants that spoke their native language they could communicate? Otherwise, that seems like it would be a bit of a mess. You follow me on that? Like, I don't see a child being sent over here from Europe and being put in a factory to work as they've alleged when that child cannot speak the native language of the United States at that time. Complete barrier of communication. And on top of that, being a child doesn't really have any other worldly experience or, skills or any type of, I don't think that he or she would have the mind to maybe, work out that communication barrier as an adult would. Do you follow me on that? Am I making sense here? Or is that just me?
bad blood. That's what they used to consider it. We kids from New York were of inferior stock.
You have to have something deep inside of you that will make you want to keep going. When I went to school, they had a game. They played send in and send out was the name of it. And the width of the playground, they would line up and they'd go after people. Well, they wanted fast runners. So I started running home and running back to school and running. Wherever I went, I was running.
She just kept running.
And one day I finally talked them into, please let me play. Just please, just once let me play and go after somebody. That was all it took. I was in 6th grade. After that, they fought over who got me because I could catch anybody there was.
The Orphan Train program was widely imitated. 40,000 children were sent to Catholic communities by a religious order, the Sisters of Charity. And organizations in Boston, Philadelphia, and Chicago relocated thousands more.
When I got the letter that my mother had died, I just felt like the door had closed. I just walked out of the house, walked down the road. It was cotton picking time. Daddy said I could stay at the house. So I did, but I didn't cry.
When a child of the streets stands before you in rags, with tear-stained face, you cannot easily forget him. And yet you are perplexed what to do. The human soul is difficult to interfere with. You hesitate how far you should go.
One sure measure of the heart and soul of any society is how it treats its children.
Anywhere from 10,000 to 30,000 orphan children lived in New York City. Charles Brace had a solution. Send these orphans by train to small towns across America and put them up for adoption. Over the course of 75 years, the Orphan Trains brought more than 200,000 abandoned children to new homes. In 1848, Charles Loring Brace arrived in New York on a mission to aid New York's poor immigrant population. After graduating divinity school, Reverend Brace worked at the 5 Points Mission, a charitable organization in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods that also became a home for its orphan children. In 1853, Brace founded the Children's
I think that internet's from 1853.
Aid Society, an organization still active today. New York had as many as 30,000 orphans, almost 6% of the entire population of the city. But at the time, the label of orphan didn't just apply to the parentless. Some families just couldn't take care of their children in the harsh conditions of New York's slums. Many of
Okay, see, this is where they lose me, okay? So we have now emerging stories that the parents just couldn't take care of the kids. They couldn't afford to feed them in the New York slums. However, if you look at, the fact that we had, what was it? The late 1800s, it was 65, 75. The airships, the Zeppelins were coming into view here, around the same time. You had Zeppelins flying around the skies. You had skyscrapers already up. Tons of infrastructure. Cities that were already laid out and ready for, several 100,000 people, it seems. San Francisco, I'm sure, and I'm going to look into this, Chicago, Boston, New York, they were already sizable cities. But yet, now we're it's just too much. Now there's not enough resources. There's no opportunity. These parents couldn't take care of them. So on one hand, We're all thriving. Everything's going just hunky-dory. Wow. Society's really coming along. This new world, this new land is just exploding and booming. All this great construction, all these brilliant minds that have moved here, immigrated from Europe, and helped build out this wonderful new place. But, now we've got, unfortunately, with the, just the numbers game, a lot of people that are worthless. They can't keep up. They're slumming it up. They can't even take care of their children. Yeah, look, it happens. It happens today, and we have technology, we have opportunity, we've got all kind of resources, and it happens today. And we're missing something. As always, I believe we are missing something here. We're not being told the full, story, getting the full picture here.
These orphans were children of recent immigrants who, if they could find jobs, were forced to take dangerous, low-paying work. Dying on the job was not uncommon. Dying at home was also not uncommon. These immigrants mostly...
I'm sorry. Time out again. Let me say this. For those of you, if this includes you, or maybe it includes someone or someone's, plural, that or that you've seen on the TV or on the YouTubes, wherever you've seen this, for all the people running around screaming about all this injustice we have going on today, just consider for a moment, really take a pause, use your brain, use your noggin, and really consider how shitty things were back then. Dying on the job, just another day. Get home from work, dreading going back. Don't worry, you don't have to, because you're dead at home. And we've seen these homes. So many people were living in those shanty towns, all these shacks, wallowing in the mud, dirt. They looked miserable. They looked dirty. Do you think it's really that bad now? Do you think things are really that bad now? Why don't you take your ass in a time machine and go back to a land where dying on the job was very common, and dying in your own house, apparently, allegedly, was very common? I think it'll put things in perspective that while things are not fun now, and it is kind of ridiculous for the age and the time that we live in and the technology and resources we have, sure. But it ain't as bad as just going to work and people dropping like flies.
Lived in cramped, unsanitary tenements where disease easily spread.
Yeah.
Their children could be orphaned if one parent died and the other couldn't care for them. Sometimes both living parents gave up their children simply because they didn't have the resources to ensure their survival. Reverend Brace recognized that the best chance for those orphaned was not in the asylums and juvenile prisons where they were normally sent, but with actual families. So, under the Children's Aid Society, he hatched a plan. Orphaned, homeless children at least 6 years old, which was considered working age, would be placed on trains heading out to America's farmlands. The hope was that they would be adopted by new families and grow up in a more peaceful rural setting, away from the dangers of the city. The first orphan train...
All right. See, now this particular segment is making this seem like this was all for the good of the children. And if I've learned anything, it's this. When you have, I want to pretty much say possibly anybody, but there's a lot of good people, so we can't say anybody, particularly the government. For me, when you have someone in the government always saying, the children, think of the children. We have to pass this law. It's because the children, we have to do XYZ things. To protect the children, we have to do whatever. Stay home for the children. Walk, don't drive anywhere for the children. You see how they use children as props consistently all of the time? And so now here, quite frankly, I'm going to just assume pure assumption and speculation that that man was doing the same thing. Oh, this is for the children's benefit. Surely it's not for his personal gain. Surely he wasn't doing this on the behalf of other people, higher ups, maybe the elite that still existed back then, to populate parts of the country, but they're being sold, they were told, and we're still kind of in some facet, some outlets were still being told it was for the children's benefit. You follow me on this one, right? You see what I'm going with that?
Left in 1854. 42 children bound for apple-picking country in Michigan.
Huh.
All orphan trains were supervised by a Western agent who was responsible for picking the small towns where the children had the best chance of being adopted. The agent would bombard the town with advertising banners and pamphlets announcing the orphans' arrival and their availability for adoption. On the day the orphans arrived, interested families would gather at the town hall, courthouse, or theater to inspect the potential adoptees. Children were placed on a stage or elevated platform, physically put up for adoption. They were poked and prodded, examined thoroughly for their health and physical capabilities. Once potential parents made their selections and the selection committee of prominent townsfolk approved, the orphans were handed over. Families were only allowed to take one child, so any siblings traveling together would almost always become separated. Any children left over would move on to the next town. In their new homes, the freshly adopted orphans were encouraged to forget their past lives in New York completely, and in some cases adopt the religious beliefs of their new families.
I bet they were. I bet they were encouraged to just forget your old life. Forget where you came from. Do you recall the world as it was 5 years ago, 6 years ago? Don't worry about that. Once again, this I'm kind of adding to this. Maybe I shouldn't. So yeah, I'm filling in the blanks. I'm admitting that, but this kind of feels like they gave the ability to these people to go ahead and give these children a whole new narrative. I'm taking liberties on that a little bit, but like, shit, man, it kind of seems like that was a little bit of the plan. Would you agree? And it's a little, how do you say in English? Suspect.
And we have to wonder if there was something much greater going on, and that the nature of the conflict, and there's no doubt there was a very significant conflict that occurred, and not just in the United States and in the United States Civil War, but in all these conflicts across all the lands. We have to wonder what the true objective of the conflict is. And one of the channel's primary theories is that this conflict was targeting the remnants of the enclave population that had survived the last reset. People that they knew that were not going to go along with the reset and not drop what the truth was in favor of a new historical narrative. We have strange pictures like this that are supposedly from the United States Civil War, where we see large rabbles of people. We'll be told that this is some sort of formation for a militia. But when you look at this image, does this really give you the inclination that this is a militia? Or is there something else going on here? And we have the strange individual there with the top hat. This doesn't appear to be a military formation. It's very odd. You could have any kind of explanation for this photo. Is this a group of refugees going somewhere? Is this a group of people that are being moved from point A to point B against their will? None of the faces look particularly happy. This doesn't look like a group.
Okay, to be fair and balanced, nobody from this era looked happy ever in any photo. I don't think. I mean, unless it's like an illustration, you know, that somebody drew a smirk or a smile was a little, but I mean, like, most of these people all looked pretty pissed off and miserable. But can you blame them? Once again, can you blame them? If you think things are bad today, this was some weird shit going on back then.
Are a militia, or they're going off to defend their homeland against some existential threat. We also think about the role that asylums played in the assimilation and indoctrination aspect. of the conflict, assimilation, and indoctrination. Earlier, the channel theorized the goals of the Kirkbride Plan, which was the plan behind asylums in the United States, but there were asylums across all the lands to ensure the population adhered to the reset. This was their way to ensure that people properly assimilated and they were indoctrinated. And if they were not, they were sent to the asylum, where they would live out their lives. It also supported the dual purpose of being able to explain the presence of isolated large facilities that didn't make sense. And we have to wonder if...
So I need to look into the Kirkbride Plan. I never heard of that. That's the first I've heard of it. Have you heard of the Kirkbride Plan? Is there more to it than what this guy was just presenting? If so, just drop me a comment. Let me know. I'm going to look into it regardless. But if you've got some knowledge here to share, let me know, please.
You tell the story of the Cabbage Patch Kids.
Right. So you've got the Tartarian Empire wiped out. So we had lots of civil wars. We had lots of catastrophes considered to be natural, like fires and floods. We had famines and genocide, acts of genocide as well. So the population throughout the entire world has been dramatically reduced. The aim being, as you touched on earlier on, was to make out as if the indigenous people and black people were primitive, and that white people were the superior and dominant race that invented and created everything. So in order for that to actually work, they needed to repopulate. So the people with pale skin, they were killed or they were incarcerated. So you'll see after 1776, lots of prisons, asylums and orphanages open. Now, you could be considered insane because your husband died in battle. So let's say the Napoleonic Wars, millions of people are dead, and the civil wars, Russia in particular, you've got a lot of women, a lot of widows with children. Losing your husband in battle was one of the reasons you could be sectioned.
Wow.
The children become property of the state and they start shipping them around, but they need more. They've got to rebuild an infrastructure. These children are going to work on farms, they're going to mine, and then we're going to see the Industrial Revolution. So they're going to be working in factories and sweatshops. So how they go about that, it is alleged, cloned, a mass cloning exercise called the Cabbage Patch Babies. And this was spearheaded following a series of short films that were made by someone called Alice Guy Blache, a French pioneer filmmaker who brought out a film called The Cabbage Patch Fairy and then The Midwife to the Upper Classes. And this depicted, black and white movie, this depicted couples going and actually purchasing babies from cabbage patches, demonstrating that they were grown. And following old Slavic folklore that babies come from cabbages and you find them in the bottom of the garden. And that's that. It's in plain sight. They're showing you a mass repopulation program. They were then sent through baby farms and through the Orphan Train movement and distributed all over the world. Some were sent to Australia from the UK. We're told that it was convicts that were sent. It wasn't. The cages are too small. The cages were child size, like puppy crates. So they distributed children throughout the world, and then all of a sudden they were put on display and classed as premature babies in all of the world's fairs and expositions throughout the world as well, and you could buy them. And one of the particular adverts that Dr. Martin Cooney, who started the incubator babies, was that we can grow a 9-month-old baby in 1 week. So they had some serious technology going there, and you could buy them. So children were being taken from their parents, redistributed throughout the world. This was also happening to indigenous children as well. Children were being brought over from Africa. Children were being taken from Native American tribes and families. And these weren't primitive by any stretch of the imagination. They were far more advanced than anybody realizes. So they repopulated. So the mass cloning exercise was called the Cabbage Patch Babies. And a series of postcards came out to promote that. They're also known as repopulation postcards. And that happened late 1800s, early 1900s. So there you go. It's a bit of a...
Wow,
yeah.
It's incredible. So, I mean, taking all these indigenous populations of children and then moving them around into different areas, different countries, just completely reseeding the planet, the new reset.
Yeah. I mean, in America alone, the orphan train movement, and this is what they state, so you can double this normally, but the official figure is 250 children were taken from orphanages in the streets of New York and distributed across the Midwest of America to work on farms and in mines. So you can double that to 500,000. We were then sending children from Russia, which was really the most heavily populated part of Tartaria, of the empire. Children from Russia were being sent all over the place. Ukraine, which was Crimea, all of the children from there were taken. So they'd go in, have a war, take the children, redistribute them, force them to speak English, change their surname, and give them a new historical narrative. This is what happened, this is where you're from, and you're imagining that. And if you didn't comply, you went to a re-education centre, which was otherwise known as an asylum. And they had a lot of child asylums as well. So you've got to think all of these world fairs, the asylums, the prisons and the orphanages all pop up at the same time, along with the Lunacy Act, just after all of the civil wars and the atrocities that occurred. And this all happened after 1776.
I never posted
Brainwashing and whitewashing exercise. And they have literally whitewashed history, made out that white people are superior, and that the white people were the true forefathers of America, and the people that had the capability and the intelligence to build these incredible structures. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. It's the other way around, entirely the other way around.
Yeah. I'll let.
Whew. So this guy is in fact insinuating and saying that they had technology back then that they don't acknowledge. It's not talked about. It's not taught. Therefore, they don't want you to know it existed. That's a big, allegedly, it's pure speculation. I could see the argument and the stance for that. I believe they are cloning people. I believe they have been cloning people. I did not know that it likely went that far back, but I have seen some pictures of the baby incubators. I've seen some of those photos, and it's very, very odd. It's super odd. Like, why would you marvel over just infants, premature births? Like, why would you go to a World's Fair or a boardwalk for entertainment and go look at premature babies? What is so wondrous about that? Unless there was some underlying factors to those babies, how they were going to survive or grow, catch up to the size they should be, however you want to word that. Like there had to have been some other element of intrigue for that to have basically have been a sideshow, some kind of a spectacle is my thought. So yeah, I think that would align with something was going on. They were doing something. They were able to do something to quite literally manufacture, grow these children. This is such an intriguing subject, and I hope y'all are enjoying this.
Dormitories were state institutions that were basically abuse disguised as educational reform. This included being confined to sewing, cooking, farming, but also slave-like labor. You weren't allowed to leave. You needed permission, as you were now in state custody. This, of course, affected people of color the harshest. Progressive reformers truly did want to help young children, but they also feared them, which led to them basically trying to beat the delinquent behavior out of them.
Lovely.
What is considered delinquent behavior? Fall too complicated for history to find out.
So not only the asylums is where they would house people long term who didn't want to go along with the new narrative. So they would send adults perhaps, or maybe teens and kids to these reformatories. And those were the ones that maybe then had hope to get them to go along with the new narrative. Am I understanding that right? And I know she didn't quite say that, but I feel like it's been implied in some stuff that I've seen just last night kind of farming for this. And I couldn't really find much on reformatory schools. Like, it seems like it was more for just, troubled kids is how they paint that picture. The usual, the bratty kids, the kids that were problematic, that were out of control, that kind of stuff. Now, do I think that was a thing? Sure, absolutely, absolutely. But what if there's like way more to this? Like, again, the reformatory schools were these schools where they taught you like bare bones things, basic shit. They didn't want you being a good thinker. They didn't want to teach you, worldly events, principles, ideas, math, things like that. They didn't want you educated. They wanted you to be reformed, which was a little lowly in your thinking and your thought processes. Here's basic necessity education, effectively. And this is what you're going to do. This is how we're living, and you're going to go with it. And if you don't, you go to the asylum. Very intriguing subject. I really enjoyed this. I hope you made it this far. If you did, thank you so very much. Yeah, man, give me a comment. Let me know. So, put a comment down. What do you think about this? Do you have any information to add to this? Do you have any other videos or links I should check out? Please let me know. Once again, thank you so much. If you made it all the way here, hope you enjoyed today's video. Do me a favor. If you did make it, hit that like, hit that subscribe button, please. And thank you so much. This is the kind of stuff we're doing. We're just looking at, some intriguing history, conspiracies, ghosts, UFOs, whatever, man. I'm here for all of it. I love it. So I hope you do too. And if you did, like, subscribe, come back and see me, please, and thank you. And that's going to wrap it up, man. I'm getting out of here. I will see you in the next one.